Time, people, action, events. They make the recipe of history, tell of the past, inspire the present, and anticipate the future. Time is the key factor that defines the outcome and also the contribution. The history of humanity revolves around seeking liberation, emancipation, and autonomy. Dedan Kimathi Foundation is one of the most dedicated non-governmental and non-profit organizations in preserving pre-colonial, colonial, and post-colonial history. Who or what is Dedan Kimathi Foundation? You might ask. What do we engage in? Are our activities limited to the past? And how do we influence the future? Dedan Kimathi Foundation was registered in 2017 with the sole purpose of resettling the Mau Mau veterans and their siblings, as well as giving them a chance to experience a decent life. Earlier on, the foundation was just a charitable organization that assisted the individual from a personal level. It was until 2017 that the like-minded persons decided to preserve the history of Kenya's struggle for independence from her colonial masters. At the center of it all was Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi, whose name resonates with the struggle to regain our land from the Britons. The death of Dedan Kimathi, through the shedding of blood, became the seed of liberation that Kenya needed. Through the lineage of the greatest veteran of all, Dedan Kimathi's legacy is perpetuated through this foundation. What he would have wanted to see, his vision for the great nation, aspiration, and the future is embodied in the modus operandi of the Dedan Kimathi Foundation. The aim of establishing the Dedan Kimathi Foundation through its patron, Mokami Kimathi, the widow of the late Dedan Kimathi, was to highlight issues about the lives of the freedom fighters and their immediate families across the country. The concern does not major on a particular tribe or region, but without tribal prejudice. At Dedan Kimathi Foundation, we believe that the freedom of this country was attained collectively by all Kenyans. The mission does not stop with the welfare of the freedom heroes and their families, but rather extends further to other activities. For instance, we have activities that deal with the environment, humanitarian aid, and refuge for the destitute under social welfare and philanthropy. Dedan Kimathi Foundation does not look at a life from an isolated or subjective perspective, but from a holistic angle that touches on all aspects of human life. The foundation is an enthusiast of environmental conservation. This involves afforestation, reforestation, conservation, and rehabilitation of catchment areas, as well as exhorting the local community to be environmentally sensitive. On conservation of the environment, the Dedan Kimathi Foundation engages in a vibrant tree planting program that also includes making of the seedbeds. The foundation prides itself in having over 300 youths, all of them trained in-house on environmental conservation, in a bid to set a new pace in making our society emulate the same. Similarly, this activity does not discriminate but involves every person in the society. A perfect example is that of the little Gasheri, who, under the tutelage of her grandmother, who doubles up as the CEO of the foundation, Miss Evelyn Kimathi, plants and takes care of her own trees on a daily basis as part of her daily childhood hobbies. This does not stop with the little children, but also extends to the youth who are distributed across the counties. The youths come from different counties within Kenya, namely Tharaka Nithi, Meru, Nyandarua, Lamu, Nyeri, Narok, Kajiado, Machakos, Makueni, Garissa, Laikipia, Murang'a, Migori, and Kiambu counties respectively. The same teams do train residents in their designated counties on how to plant, protect, preserve, and take care of the newly planted trees in their bid to make the exercise successful and well cherished. The foundation also engages in town cleanups and dump sites management. We have done cleanups in various towns, which included the activities to protect water catchment areas and environmental degradation by harnessing activities to deter soil erosion. For instance, Githurai youths have done a tremendous job of cleaning the Githurai riverbank. All these attest to the commitment that the foundation has to touch the lives of people and, most importantly, protect the land that our heroic freedom fighters relentlessly fought for. The Dedan Kimathi Foundation also engages in humanitarian activities by restoring the lost dignity of Kenyans across the country. The Dedan Kimathi Foundation is philanthropic enough to come to the aid of the destitute in the society. We have a children's home while at the same time supporting other children's homes by donating relief food for the hunger-stricken countrywide, medical care, visiting and feeding the elderly, and mentorship programs for primary school children. One of the most dear cases to the foundation is that of little Victor, who was born of a mentally disturbed mother and was adopted by the foundation and is now under their care. The Dedan Kimathi Foundation Children's Home does not only provide food and shelter to the children, but also a stable education, taking them through their early childhood education, primary education, secondary education, and in future, most of these children will be able to join tertiary education. The welfare of veterans cannot be spoken of without the mention of a matriarch whose role in fighting for the freedom of Kenya is often forgotten. Mukami Kimathi is a lady from whom the horrors of fighting for freedom are vividly told. She recalled how the country was becoming tense day by day and colonial administration held deeper within our country's sovereignty at the expense of our people. The relentlessness engulfed everything, and the authoritarianism found its way deeper into the souls of our people, and gradually the urge to free ourselves became irresistible. The regrouping and self-reorganization, therefore, took center stage, and quietly and surely the Mau Mau organization was eventually formed. As a young mother and a wife, life was becoming quite intolerable. But I had to support him with all my strength. Together, we trusted God, prayed hard with a burning conviction deep down our hearts that even without weapons, unlike the British colonialists, God would fight for us and deliver Kenya from the cruel hands of the British colonialists, recounts Mukami Kimathi. For the sake of such valuable heroes and heroines, we recognize and cater to the wives of the freedom fighters' heroes who died in the struggle for our freedom. The foundation is named after a warrior, a freedom fighter whose freedom is yet to be secure. Dedan Kimathi was buried in an unmarked grave, and his burial site remains unknown. The subsequent governments are yet to release the remains of the Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi to be accorded a befitting burial of the fighter he was. In a country that boasts of its freedom for over half a century, Dedan Kimathi is yet to taste the fruits of his labor. Dedan Kimathi Foundation, therefore, continually appeals our democratic request to the government. To deny Dedan Kimathi his rightful burial at his family's premises is to kill their freedom of social right and major irony to the very democratic grounds, since Kimathi took a major role in making the country free from the colonial grief. It is worth nothing that Dedan Kimathi was fighting for the liberation and reclaiming the ancestral land, yet the elderly men and women who painstakingly struggled for freedom with him sleep in the cold and thrive in immense hunger in their own country. Despite land issues being addressed by all the governments that have been in power successfully since independence, freedom fighters are still landless. The Dedan Kimathi Foundation, therefore, fights for the rights of the Mau Mau veterans and their own immediate families. The foundation donates food, clothing, and provides medical care to the Mau Mau veterans and their families. Inspired by the plight of Mau Mau veterans, Dedan Kimathi Foundation engages in other activities like celebrating with others and marking the important dates for making the world go green. For instance, the foundation has so far planted over 1 million tree seedlings across the country. Furthermore, many primary schools, secondary schools, police stations, hospitals, among others, through the influence of the Dedan Kimathi Foundation and partners, are now taking part in the tree planting program by the Dedan Kimathi Foundation. Most pupils in schools are now entitled to plant at least one tree with the support of Dedan Kimathi and partners, where the pupil will also be responsible for the growth and protection of that single tree. The foundation is made up of like-minded persons who have a special connection to the well-being of people as well as that of the environment. Those who work with the foundation have passed through the toughest moments of their lives, and there were times when they were susceptible to misfortunes. The Dedan Kimathi Foundation has so far planted over 1 million tree seedlings across the country. The foundation also participated in the Biodiversity Day, Bamboo Planting Day, and the World Environment Day, where we rehabilitated Sasumu Dam by planting trees along its banks. One of the major objectives of the Dedan Kimathi Foundation is to settle over 20,000 landless freedom fighters, related families, and even some elderly fighters who are still alive. Freedom fighters' aspirations were not only to set their countries free from colonial grips, but rather to make their future generations enjoy their sacrifices to an extent of losing and risking their own lives. They could not allow colonizers to control their lands and their moral thinking. The Dedan Kimathi Foundation is stepping up to address this historical injustice and have it settled once and for all.